Welcome to Communicast, telling stories of good people doing great things. And with me again today is Mike Kind of Standata. Welcome back to Communicast.
Yep.
And now that you've been out and launched for a short period of time, I think one of the most interesting pieces is that you now have a HybridWorkHub.com site for HR. And when we last talked, the whole idea of, going back to work, not going back to an office situation, remote, and the comfort of how you work, we're all in the air. And that's only gotten more visible probably in the last month or two, as many CEOs have demanded people to come back. I just heard a story on NPR the other day. On average, 2% of people leave a job each year and change their workforce. That's now at 2.7%. So it's a significant change. And more people are questioning, why do we have to go back to what was? That may not be so good. And out comes Standata with a website for HR and the beginning of what I would call a new category, right? Where are the resources for people who are trying to figure this out? And
that was the purpose of HybridWorkHub. Really the idea of it's knowledge collaboration and sharing of best practices and ideas, and kind of building bridges, of knowledge amongst all members. The thing that some of these things that you just mentioned are, I would say, not very surprising, at least from our perspective. You talked about the people changing jobs to 2.7%. The initial forecast we did was that was going to rise to about 4%. And interestingly, when you talk about these, this hybrid work, I think in a lot of these cases we need to really work on simplifying it and then building it back up. In other words, what we did or what we're doing is really kind of talking more about the nature of work.
Yes.
And the nature of work really kind of falls into two categories. One is collaborative and one is focused. Collaborative work may not necessarily mean that that you're collaborating with an individual to share knowledge. You may be collaborating with people, product, or equipment. A great example, just using those three cases where it is still collaborative, but really not suitable for a hybrid work environment would be, and just take three job categories. In the case of product, somebody that's working in a supermarket as a cashier or as a stocker, they can't work remote. They have to be, at job. Let's not even call it in office, but at the work site. If you're a machinist and you work in a manufacturer, you need to be at the facility. If you're a neurosurgeon, you have to be at the hospital to perform your job function. So just because, not every job fits that mold of being remote or even hybrid. Well, those three job descriptions I just described are 100%, at facility, in office, at facility, in operating room, manufacturing facility or supermarket. So I think that's really an important distinction that you need to kind of break that down. The fact of where hybrid comes in is, and it's interesting because I just had this discussion with a major technology company. One of the things that they said is they broke their job functions into whether they be 100% in office, hybrid, or 100% remote. So, for example, if you're part of the ongoing facilities maintenance of the offices, you can be 100% You have to be 100% in office. If you have certain job functions where you're a manager and you've got multiple employees, could be hybrid, could be remote, or if you're in accounting, for example, in accounts payable, you could be 100% remote. But they're also leaving some of those decisions of remote or hybrid up to the employee themselves. But I think even the employees that consider themselves 100% remote, in fact, one of the people I talked to was in accounts payable, she was defined as 100% remote and decided to up and move 2 hours away from the corporate office. That being said, she also realized that even though she's 100%, her qualification is 100% remote, she will have to come into the office from time to time.
On occasion, sure.
Twice a month. Yeah, so, and I think that's where I said, if you kind of take that and break that down, to a more basic level and then start building it up again, then it's a question of defining, exactly what, hybrid is. I'm not going to go through that because I think that's part of the thing that I think still it needs to be defined, and I think maybe individual for the company. But what I can tell you with a fairly high degree of certainty is that for those job definitions that would universally be defined as potentially a hybrid work arrangement, if companies do not offer that type of arrangement for those employees, and again, you don't have to, but it's going to be as basic as offering, like health insurance benefits. In other words, you have some companies that don't offer any health benefits. Well, you're not going to attract better talent. To attract the better talent, you're going to have to offer health plan.
Yeah,
the same
I'd like to
apply to hybrid
jump
work
in right here because there's one very specific thing that we should name, right? And it's the human element. We're talking about it. You're talking around it a little bit, but what's really key, and I think what's so important about even the website and the resource you're creating, is you're creating a forum for a dialogue. It's what you and I are doing. It's what we did in the first call. And anyone can come up with a concept. Businesses are flipped left and right. Startup world is full of disruption. But the ones that succeed are where they pull on and invite the talent of the individuals involved for input. So this person that you're talking about that is 100% remote could move 2 hours away. The more that person is engaged in the conversation or their input is respected by senior management or leadership, the better the decision, right? Where do you get your best creativity? You get from people who are not only confident about what they do and know, but confident and have enough trust that they can speak their mind and still keep their job or potentially grow their job. And so that is part of where I find the fascination, because you're directing this website and the resources to HR. And HR is that intermediary between who make decisions, those who make the decisions, and those who have to follow through on them, even if their worldly experience or on the job experience may dictate, excuse me, but there's an easier, better, faster, less frustrating way to do this. And so at a time that we've introduced AI everywhere and at a time that we are automating so many tasks, you've thrown in an element, I call it a monkey wrench. It's that human factor that says, I can, I will, and I stand up for myself and or the company if they give me enough trust factor. So it's
and I'd like to interject the thing that we found so far. I mean, again, the launch of HybridWorkHub is in its infancy, but interestingly enough, we have a higher concentration of corporate real estate professionals that are joining more so than HR. And I think the reason for that is, I said, the best way to kind of get the information has always been said, talk to the people that are on the front line.
Sure.
And companies have found the opportunity to really effectuate major cost savings in creating this hybrid work hub. And we talk about, for example, real estate, being able to contract the real estate. The company I'm actually talking about was they've actually made it a challenge for people to go into the office. I mean, they have an in-office protocol. They have to stand in line, wear a mask, fill out a questionnaire, get their temperature taken, scan in, take a survey, go through a door, wait for the elevator, and they make it. They want to make it, kind of.
Do I really need to be in the office?
Exactly, and they have 8,000 employees,
Mhm.
and they're spread across 4 or 5, a campus with 4 or 5 buildings. And I think ultimately the goal would be that, yes, we can do this in this, and create this collaborative where, yes, I do have to go in, but I'm not going to do it, 1 or 2 days a week. Use your judgment, see which, because again, face to face is still no better, but it's still much better than the
Right.
Zoom meetings that we're having. There's no question about that. But what they found also was, their travel expense bill was running $500,000 a day. And during the pandemic, it dropped to virtually nil. I mean, when you talk about a savings of $500,000 a day of
Across an enterprise, that's huge.
I don't care what size enterprise you are. That's a lot of money. And I think that's the important, point. And I think that's why we're seeing a lot of the facilities folks getting involved with that. And as I said, it's not completely defined, but everybody is looking for thoughts and ideas. And we've never seen, at least in my career, I've never seen a state of disruption like
Right.
this has been. So,
and that's you talk about disruption, and that's a real fantastic pivot point, because you have hardware, but we're talking about people, and we're talking about change in everything. So many people, the masks are gone, everybody's going back like it's back to the old normal. And yet the experiences that we're gaining in industry, in business, in interactions with family have all had dramatic impact that we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg now.
Yeah, and the thing that I think, at least from the research that I've done, is the impact is very individualized.
Yes.
And it really has to do with a lot of your personal circumstances. For example, at least me, I would say, boy, the people that would have really embraced the remote work would have been the kind of the younger, Gen Zs, where they had, they have more of the technical ability. When you talk about still some of the baby boomers that are out there, and they're, the way they're able to not only navigate their existing technology, but trying to adapt to new technology would have been a huge issue. But the truth is, they are some of the ones that have adapted the best because of their circumstances. They don't have young children at home. They've already gone through that socialization process and indoctrination into a corporate culture that the younger generation is missing, and the socialization. So I said it's actually been fascinating. So I think there's
Yes.
a lot of different things in a lot of different circumstances. I don't think you can relate it to age or gender or anything like that. But I think you really got to look at the individual. And I think that's where a lot of these companies are saying, let's kind of build like a cafeteria plan and give people options based on the job descriptions. And I think that's where we say, okay, based on the nature of your job, what works best for you? And I think that's it. Because again, there is going to be that, we talked about that focused work and collaborative work,
Right.
the two definitions. You will be able to do both of those in office. And the question is, how many people am I going to have doing focused work? Because I'll have to set up focused work areas, which are going to be workstations. If they're collaborative work, no, they've got to be more of that, round tables, change in seating, more relaxed, a more relaxed, open environment where thoughts and ideas and creativity flow more freely. So as I said, I think companies are looking to see what that makeup is first before they adapt, their facilities in a lot of instances. But I think, again, it's going to evolve. As I said, the job description is really important, but then what's important to that individual?
These are great observations of yours, Mike, and so relevant, because it's the coexistence of human and artificial intelligence, machine learning, and they do come down to, and that's what we should get out of technology, is the ability to individualize the needs and optimize for everybody that's out there. So since inception, how are you doing with the progressive trial? You know, you had asked, your goal was to get 10 companies involved and start using it. Any surprises to you? Any things that jump out as better than expected or totally different?
Well, yeah, probably two. One is I think our timing. I think everything we've done so far has been kind of a little ahead of the curve, and I think that's been the story of my career. So I think there's still a little, unsureness about what we're doing or the value, of maybe doing a pilot program. I think what we need to do first, and that's where I guess HybridWorkHub came in there, is understand more about the client, and and when I say the client, it's the organization and how it relates to their employees, and really kind of take that step back. Again, we were looking at it more from that, to make your hybrid workers more productive. That's the proof of concept that we believe we've got, that value proposition. But I think companies are still trying to figure out who is going to be hybrid, rather than working on how do I make them more effective in a hybrid environment, So I said, I think we're probably about 3 months away, and I'm hoping that this hybrid work hub will actually put us in a better position to enable us to do that.
I took a look at that after I got the email, and you've got some really interesting postings. It's starting a dialogue. You've got people with expertise and people with questions. So it's, what are you seeing in terms of engagement? Are people seeing this as, I can't help but go back to HubSpot when it began and created a conversation called inbound. It was non-existent. It's a totally new category, as I believe the hybrid workforce is. And you take it day by day, your vision, you say you're 3 months ahead of the curve. That's rough on the financials, but really powerful in terms of the vision. And so by creating this forum, to me, that was a reason I said to Adam, we should talk again. Let's set something up with Mike, because I truly believe in this dialogue that you create a forum that people can explore, and to the degree that they feel safe with this exploration. Trust is so important when you go and you allow a hybrid workforce. Remote happened because there was no choice. Now comes the question of, do I trust you enough? Do you trust me enough? And as that comes in, this forum that you've created, I think has a huge potential, depending on how do you attract people to it, what's the moderator do, if there is one, and how do you grow that message so that people look at this as a new category? Because it truly is.
Well, I think ultimately, as I think we talked about before, Keith, it was kind of the same vision I've had in business from day one, and really, especially with this with that proof of concept you just mentioned, it really is you've got to create value, and I think that's the real important thing, is creating value. I will tell you, we're off to a quicker start in getting the right people that we saw engaged in this. This isn't about, getting, 4 or 5 people and hiring, getting a bunch of consultants coming in, trying to, to kind of nibble at them and trying to get opportunities. I think it was more about, I know it was really more about the sharing of information. In fact, we did have a person who said, well, what is the purpose of the group? And we said, it's really about sharing information and best practices, amongst organizations as we navigate through this. And as I said, while I consider, some of what we're doing maybe a little bit ahead of the curve, I still think that there's still information that needs to be refined, which is where the, group participation is going to be important. And there's different ways that we can do that. We talk about that every day, literally, and of how to do that. And, you don't want to start engaging people, I would say, right away and saying, hey, I see you're on our site. Let me send you a survey, because again, that,
terrifying.
So yeah, exactly. And that's not the purpose. As I said, I think it's more about, let's build, a value proposition, surveys, send out some of that information. And really, we're doing a lot of that without Hybrid Work Hub. So I think the first phase is really us sharing the information that we've been able to acquire amongst ourselves, with the groups. And I said, as you said, building that trust first, and then taking it from there to be able to really, get feedback from them. And there's different ways we can do that. One of the things
Right.
we're looking at, for example, is maybe do, and I know this has worked really well for me, for some groups that I've joined. Sometimes they'll give me, like a 2 or 3 question survey, like a weekly survey. What's your input on this, that, or the other thing? You send that out to the members. And then what do I get in return? Well, I see what other members are saying. Here's what I think. What do other members say?
Right,
And I'll
absolutely.
tell you what, if we were able to do just that, and be able to get the engagement at that level where I said, hey, I can do my weekly survey. It's going to take me 10 seconds and I'm going to be able to get those results of what other people are doing in this area. That alone would be engagement.
And that builds the trust bubble. People like us have these concerns, and they similarly have reactions that I agree with, disagree with, but in any event, I'm learning and sharing. It's a beautiful concept. And it's something I do a weekly session on Tuesday nights with people from all across the world. And it really comes down to not our dissimilarities, but what we share in common and the trust to be able to share the questions, the real questions. So, well, thank you for checking in. Anything last comments for here? And
no, I really appreciate you taking the time. And, as I said, I would, I look forward to speaking in the future. We'll keep you updated on how we're doing.
Absolutely. It's an exciting turn. I'm happy to be a part of it, to continue to hear and update, and continued success.
Thank you. Thank you very much.